Welcome back to Maximum News, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, as always, your friendly neighborhood Simpsons kin, Max Derrat, Danger Derrat, for that matter, because Danger is my middle name. And joining me, as always, is my lovely co-host, one third of the Triple S League. He is Sybsidian. How you doing, dude? Aside from the fact that it's hot again.
Yeah, it's hot again, and yes, I am quite lovely. I did almost beat out Vanna White for the role on Wheel of Fortune.
Really? What made you lose it? You just refused to wear the dresses?
Yeah, it was mostly the dresses thing. They just didn't fit my form, you know. So I figured, that, and they said the blinking lights were a bit of a distraction. So I guess whatever. Don't ask.
What?
Don't
okay,
ask.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not even going to pursue that. We don't have that much stuff to talk about today compared to other days. It's just the lead up to Starfield. Side 1 week, man. I still got to get my SSD.
It's not even a week. By the time this comes out, it'll be tomorrow.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, for the people that are getting early access, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
But which I'm not. I don't think you are either, right?
Oh yes, I am.
Oh, you're gonna be playing Starfield tomorrow?
We're like all of us are going to be, and we're hoping to stream it. So schedule's a little crazy right now, just due to summer work. The idiots that decided to release this in August,
right?
In September. So we're hoping to be streaming it this weekend a fair bit. We'll see. Ash is going to be working on as many videos as he can. We're going to be trying to work on some videos. I just fixed my SSD problem last night, so
good.
It's like we're barreling towards release, and it's going to be insane because there's so much news coming out. We are going to keep things 100% spoiler free. We're not talking about plot. We're not talking about any of that kind of stuff. There's a few drama situations. That's about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're just gonna give a quick roundup of the Starfield stuff in just a second. But before we get to that, I just wanted to note one thing that we didn't actually have on this list that I completely forgot about. Last podcast that we did was right before Gamescom, Seb, and during that episode, we talked about the stuff that we were looking forward to. Obviously, I was looking forward to Alan Wake 2 because that's my second most anticipated game of the year, and the stuff that they showed was awesome. Black Myth Wukong, a whole bunch of other stuff. But one thing that really took up the majority of our conversation on that podcast was Crimson Desert, and how that game completely disappeared from the public eye for 3 years. It was announced back at the Game Awards in 2020, and then it was re-revealed almost 3 years later again. You and I didn't really have high hopes for it. Well, no, let me step back for a second. We agreed that they announced it way too early, that the way that they were pursuing the development of it wasn't necessarily for the best, but it's just the way that things go in the world of game development. That's how you show off this flashy trailer, try to bring people in, and then try to meet that vision later on, which is too bad, but it's the kind of recipe that can easily set you up for disaster. And it led me to believe, it led me to suspect that what I initially thought would be sort of like my dream version of Elder Scrolls 6 would end up being a disappointment. But then we saw the trailer. I'll say this. It doesn't look like... It looks less like Elder Scrolls 6 and more like an 8K high-definition version of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Or Genshin Impact.
Or Genshin Impact, yeah. And...
Or any of those similar titles, which there are a lot these days.
And when I say that in a complimentary fashion. Because, Saib, again, if what they're promising here is real, this could be the next big thing.
It looked good. It looked really good. It seems to be that they've committed to because this was the one thing that I was very concerned about. Is this going to be a single player game or a multiplayer game? Because single player game, harder to rope in microtransaction. Obviously, if it's multiplayer, then there's just 1,000 ways to rope that in. And I wasn't sure, just because of the lack of news on it for a long time. I've heard the rumors that it was going single player, but I had no idea to be like where to sit on it for sure, because there just wasn't details that were coming out from that studio.
Right. But we didn't know early on that the character we'd be controlling was named Macduff. So that implies that it's single player, unless there's a multiplayer component, which I don't think there is.
Which, and that was the thing, was like, I mean, there's been, there's a couple single player games out there that are semi online and that have microtransaction. Looking at you, Ubisoft.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that I was worried about, and for the record, I'm still worried about there being an unhealthy amount of microtransactions.
Yes.
Even in a single player game, because again, Ubisoft and EA and a bunch of other companies have shown that they're more than willing to throw in large amounts of microtransactions into single player games for some weird reason, or having that come out initially, not having any microtransactions, then the multiplayer mode comes out and it's littered with them, or just a multiplayer, or not even a multiplayer mode, just microtransactions being released after the actual game released, which is what we've seen in a number of Ubisoft titles, and it's very concerning and worrisome. But I don't think we saw any of that or hints of that, and I'm hoping that it stays that way, because the one thing that's really got to push these companies out is being able to do more than what they have been doing, which is a lot of just MMO style games that rely heavily on microtransaction, FOMO, and the idea that you're going to be left behind. That's so prevalent in games coming out of not just that studio, but that entire region, that it's kind of a big concern.
Yeah. But at least the way that they're selling it to us and everything that we can reasonably glean from the gameplay, it doesn't look like that. It looks like large open worlds with a great deal of verticality, like I just suggested by comparing it to Tears of the Kingdom. Kinetic. They got all the graphical glitches right. It seems to be running at 60 FPS and it looks great. It looks off the chain. I want it to be real so badly. I have no doubt that it's probably not going to be released until something like 2025. But man, it really made me more optimistic that what they seem to be promising is real. Because now that Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has come out and sort of set the standard for that type of game with that amount of content and that amount of traversal and just freedom to explore, that maybe we can have somebody take that formula and then give it to us in the highest possible definition. So hopefully that's what we'll get. We'll see if Pearl Abyss can follow up on that along with their other project, DokeV, I think it's called. But we'll see. Just wanted to bring that up. Now, let's get to the big stuff. Starfield news roundup. Go.
So there is a bit of drama with fully exploring planets. We don't know if there were some invisible walls discovered, and we don't know why those are there, specifically after having a lot of people ask and being answered in some certain questions. And we're still not even certain on what the final story on that is, because we keep getting contradictory information. Now, most people aren't going to explore every single entire planet, especially not those that have no major NPCs or even monsters or aliens or whatever you want to call them, because it's more about hey, this location, hey, go to the next location, hey, go to the next location, and that was part of the Todd Howard and Pete Hines saying that this game's exploration works differently than the games in the past. You can be very, very finite, but you're encouraged to just to continue your journey because that's really what the story is about. So that's one thing. And again, it's like we understand when we're playing a game that has a limited travel box and you hit an invisible wall and you're like, well, this sucks. But at the same time, it's like that's a map that we play over and over and over again. You get to know every nook and cranny of it. You're not necessarily meant to get to know every single nook and cranny of the space that you're dealing with here. But again, the communication on this has been a little weird, and we still don't know exactly how that's going to play out. We also don't know if they've been encountering if that's an early pre-release bug or not, or system whatever, because there are certain limitations put on some things, and their release patch notes for tomorrow, Thursday, have been kind of littered with some of that stuff, saying that there is some other options and things that are in the works there. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I think that it's probably a good chance that that modders will fix it, that they'll tweak it, and that's probably, again, I don't think I've ever really, I've even with Fallout 4, I modded that game with my own mods. I was one of the I had a character skin up very, very early on. I think it was like 2 days after it launched, that became one of the more downloaded character profiles on Nexus. And then we had I didn't like how when you're moving around, walking around, there wasn't enough sounds coming from the player character, like grunts and sighs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I modded a whole bunch of those in, and that became a fairly popular mod within the game as well, including a whole bunch of additional options. And then that became the springboard for one of our major character mods in Nexus, on Nexus. And this is what I mean. It's like, I have very rarely ever played a Bethesda game without mods. I think the last time I did it, probably on like the Xbox 2 in Morrowind, I think. So yeah, it's been a long time, and not to say that in this particular case, we're going to have mods. We're going to have an official mod store, and both the consoles and the PC are obviously going to be getting a ton of mods. And this is part of the news, in that Bethesda is actually working with some really amazing modders, working on doing things that are just really above and beyond what we expected. So one of the things that they did is they hired the guy who did the interesting NPCs for Skyrim.
Mod. Great mod.
And the follow-up mod that he did for Fallout 4, in where he goes in, he finds a ton of it's like a combination of some of the cutting room content in the form of like locations, characters, that kind of stuff that were meant to be in certain places, and he just fills out the world with a ton of stuff. The mod for the Skyrim had over 250 fully voiced NPCs with 25 followers, over 15 marriage partners, and I think it was like 80 quests when he finally got done with it. I think there's a lot more on some of those numbers. This guy has done an amazing job with Skyrim, and he did an equally amazing job with Fallout. And he's been brought in to Bethesda as a freelance dev, I guess you could call him.
Yeah, good for him.
Where he's gone in and he has created, apparently, it's like hundreds of various scenarios inside the game.
Nice.
Specifically around derelicts and space stations. And he was given a budget, and he was given a ton of leeway to, as far as I understand, we haven't gotten a confirmation on this, but it looks like he's been able to bring in a lot of his voice work from the actors that he used to do other stuff. And that's pretty amazing, considering that I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that a bunch of those people didn't even know they were recording lines for Starfield. So this is really, really, really exciting, in that we have this huge project being added into the game at no additional strain on the original dev team.
Yeah.
And this is just one scenario. Apparently, they've gone through and talked to a ton of modders. And I asked some questions to some of my modder friends recently and said, "Hey, did you hear about, or did you get approached by Bethesda to do any modding work that you would normally have done for release, but you were kind of given some early access tools and said, do what you do best and submit it to us?" And their answer was, "Hey, did you see the game last night?" And I'm like, "What game?" They're like, Did you see the sports thing?" I'm like, "What sports thing?" "Well, the sports thing. We should talk about the sports thing, because I definitely can't talk about what you just asked about."
Oh, okay.
So this is looking great. I know that Bethesda is really warming up to modders. We do have some kind of a mod store coming, and I'm okay with mod stores. I think that the first release of it, the first version of it that they did, which was atrocious, allowed for theft and a whole bunch of other things of other people's works, and it was done really poorly. But I think moving forward, I think that there was a lot of lessons. That was also like almost it was well over half a decade ago.
That was Fallout 4, right?
No, that was before that.
Oh,
that was it. Yeah, that was way long time ago. It was way before Fallout 4 even came out. Fallout 4, they have had this store in which you can buy mods, and I really think that that they did a good job with it, because they made it optional. They came up with a bunch of solutions to fix and to merge mods, which I think that's a great tool, and that I think we'll see better mods in the future because of stuff like that. And then just the overall impact and focus on the modding community being so important to them, I think that's good. And I think it's fine to pay some people for some mods. If you don't want to pay people for some mods, there's going to be a lot of free mods. There's a big movement to keep mods free for the majority of stuff. And again, it comes down to the individual. If they feel that they want to get paid for making a really cool horse, then they should be able to get paid for making a really cool horse. It's like any other hobby, where it's like, if you're going to sell part of your hobby, or if you're going to sell part of your skills, you're totally, that's totally an option for you.
Yeah.
Our mods, we decided to keep all of them free. And a bunch of other modders that I know decided to keep all of theirs free, and to kind of say on that, because they feel that it would become more like a job and less like a passion. Mm-hmm. And so I think that you can support both people at the same time without necessarily coming down on one side and being all aggressive about it. So I think that they've really approached this well. We can see that they're lining up a bunch of mod work for like laying the groundwork. There was some mention of a currency, so that you buy the currency. Now, I am against that. I don't think you should. I think when you buy a mod, you should see that mod in whatever currency you use in your country. So you log in, you see, hey, this mod is for 50 cents. I will buy this mod for 50 cents. I really do hate it, and I really think it's a bad thing when you have, hey, buy 500 gold script so that you can use the gold script to buy fusion crystals, so that you can use those to buy time indexes, and then use those to buy the mods. I think that's predatory, and I think that needs to stop. And I'll be as fairly vocal on that as I can be once mm-hmm. that system actually drops. Because I think it deserves the right. Everybody should know exactly how much they're spending to get what. You shouldn't be like, because it's a disconnect and it makes it easier to spend money on stuff. But other than that, we've had a bunch of leaks, a bunch of things coming out, a bunch of weird, just really weird users just like taking pot shots at the game. The biggest one that's happened over the last few hours, and if you follow my Twitter, or X, I guess if you follow my X.
No, we're not calling it that. Just call it Twitter.
If you follow my Twitter, you'll see that I got a little spicy on this, because there were a bunch of people going, why play Starfield when you could play Star Citizen and
I saw
fly
that.
around this and do that, and it's like,
because one is being fully released and the other one has been in early alpha for the last decade. That's why.
yeah. It's not just the last decade. If you got pregnant the day that the Kickstarter went live for Star Citizen,
Yeah, the kid would be over
your
10 now.
14-year-old, almost 14-year-old, is looking at getting their driver's license, their learner's license, not their driver's license, their learner's license in some states and provinces and countries.
Wait a minute, didn't Starfield's Star Citizen's Kickstarter start in 2012?
Nope, 2010.
Oh wow, okay, my bad.
Yeah, right. Like the full development didn't kick in until later on, but even the plans for it and the drawing up of the goals and the formulating, they started doing that in 2009.
Yeah.
So this game has been in development for almost a decade and a half. You're going to be coming up on basically, essentially like, and there's no end in sight, by the way. There's no release date in sight. They are still in alpha. They're not in beta. They're in alpha. And at their present rate, even their own like hardcore people who follow them realize that this game probably not coming out into an open or like saleable state until probably around 20
the end of the decade.
29.
Yeah.
Like, okay, all right. So you're looking at a 2 decades. Really? Wow. That's the game you want to compare it to? I compared it to the fact that they started throwing around the idea for Star Citizen just before Skyrim was released.
Yeah.
Then you had Fallout 4 and all of the stuff around that, all of the expansions for Skyrim, all of the re-releases of Skyrim, and you've had Starfield be made and released in the time that this company is still in alpha getting this out. And again, I'm not hating on Star Citizen. I like the game. I wish the game was out because I used to play Privateer back in the day, and that was kind of the game that this one, the Star Citizen, was kind of built on. But it's been poorly handled for so long.
It's so obvious. Like, even if you want, like, if you're like me, who looks at Star Citizen says, like, look, this could be, in theory, it's the best game ever. It's not the way that they're going about trying to make it. You can criticize it. And I don't see how, like, what mental gymnastics you would have to go through in order to defend it.
Yeah.
I'll say this, though. Like, one thing that Star Citizen does have over Starfield is the ability to get in your ship, take to the stars, seamless transition between planets to space and then back to planets. They have that. Kudos. But you know what?
Supposedly.
Well, I mean, like what? It works 10% of the time. Fine. They have that.
Yeah.
But I, as much as it pains me to not have that in Starfield, I'll still choose Starfield every time because it's a complete game. Supposedly, it's a polished game. It has all the content in there. It has all the RPG elements, all the dialogue trees. And what does Star Citizen have right now? They're selling $10,000 ships in order to finance
their current open, like, if you want to log in and play whenever you want into Star Citizen right now.
Oh, I heard about this.
You have to have spent 25,000 USD dollars.
Yeah.
I mean,
did you hear recently that they have to because, whenever Star Citizen releases a new update, people log into the game just to look at their ship and see what was changed. Well, apparently, they can't afford the servers for when people do that. So they have to have truncated sign-ins so that only a certain number of people can sign in when they do that. And then after that, they let other people in. And then after that, it's ridiculous. It's a scam, guys.
It's not. I know that it's not a scam in the sense that they sat down and they just said, "Hey, let's scam a bunch of these like old guys."
Yes,
these old what do they call them? Like the traditional gamers or whatever. I don't think that they did that, but I think they've been mismanaged to the point where they've just overshot, and it's become a bit of a joke. I think that ultimately, if they had just focused on getting out a much smaller, much more, yes, you have load screens between systems, maybe, or maybe you just have, maybe you start with a tri-binary system, and you just make the game within that scope. Yeah. And everybody's in that world, and then you dumb it down enough so that you can actually run the game and it can actually function. Then you start immediately working on the next variant of it, the next version of it.
It's already technically, like, they're already aiming for it to be like an MMO. Yeah. So why not treat it like that? Give us Squadron 42, which is the main campaign, and then build around that.
Yeah. But or even starting out with, if they'd started out with the whole, like, just the campaign story and done that, because again, it's like, I get what they want to do, but what they wanted to do, it isn't technically feasible yet. And I've said this, I mean, even years ago, I was saying, like, Star Citizen, what they needed to make this system work was a bunch of AI stuff that isn't in existence at the time, but fast forward to today, like, we're getting really close to that tech. Yeah. And I feel that if they had come out with a game, like, and released it about 3 years ago, that they would have been able to, like, then say, and you have no idea where we're going in the future, because we've got all this tech, this AI stuff is right around the corner. We are going to have this fully expansive system, but right now, just technically, there's just a limitation on it that we just can't reach. And again, it's like, this has been at the expense of people who have pumped almost $1 billion into this game. It's absolutely mind-numbingly weird and no doubt frustrating for a lot of gamers, because, like, it's going to be like 2 decades before they even get their hands on it, and it's like, that's insane. That's really insane. I mean, I can't imagine sitting down to take a 2-decade wait for a product. Like, good Lord.
Well, Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Yeah, well, that one too. But I mean, that one has its own problems. And then just final note for Starfield.
Yeah.
The one thing that we're hearing from everybody who is playing the game, who is accessing it, the one thing that we're hearing in a lot of whispers, and again, like, we kind of have to take this with a little bit of grain of salt. But I think it's true, because I've been saying it for a long time, and my sources have been saying it for a long time. This is going to be the most polished Bethesda game we will ever see, have ever seen up to this point.
Good.
It is going to be, it is so polished, and it is so bug-free. That's not to say that it's completely bug-free.
No game is.
They've already released a patch that's going to be coming out again tomorrow for the early access people, and it solved a bunch of, like, critically game-breaking bugs, right? So, like, they still have those in there, and I have no doubt that there will still, of course, be bugs, because that's just the way it is. I remember when games would come out, you get it on a floppy disk, and if there was a bug that could be exploited, most people knew about it and knew how to, like, take advantage of it, and it was seen as a bit of a feature in some cases, being able to, like, skip content or handle bosses or do something that way. And not to say that that's fine, but to say that we're not going to get what we had with 76 is, I think that's probably very apparent. We're not going to have that same problem.
Right.
There might be some computers that have a hard time handling it, but if you meet the minimum specs or greater, from what I'm seeing, from what I'm hearing from everybody I hear from, basically this game is marvelously well polished. It's the best product that they've ever come out with at launch. The big question is going to be, are people going to like the gameplay loop? Are people going to really get into it? And a lot of people are saying, yes, this is actually a lot of fun. And that's all they're saying on it for now, until the NDA drops in just a few days.
Yeah, the review embargo lifts on the 31st, right? So only a couple more days until we get our full reviews. So that's something to look forward to for somebody like me who's not going to be able to play it until the 6th, I think, because I actually have to get my motherboard replaced, and I figured with the computer shop that I'm taking it into, I might as well do that while also putting on an SSD, while also inputting RAM, and I won't be able to do that until the day before Starfield comes out. So yeah, hopefully things go well that day, and I will have everything ready so that I can enjoy Starfield the way that I'm supposed to. There was one other thing I was going to say about Starfield, but it just completely slipped my mind. It was in Juicehead's video on it. If it comes back to me, I'll let you know. But yeah, generally speaking, we're both very excited for the game. It'll be more than a worthy replacement for the Star Citizen-shaped hole in our hearts. And unlike Armored Core 6, I will have no excuse. I am going to be playing this all day, the day that it comes out. Now, speaking of Armored Core 6, I'm just going to say this really quickly. Syb, I was gearing up to play this game last Friday. And because I've just become such a huge fan of From Software's games the last few years, they earned my attention with Armored Core 6. Mm-hmm. I have had no time to play it. Like, I was going to play it all day Friday and Saturday, but instead, because my video on Majora's Mask on my personal channel was taking so long to edit, it just took all those days away from me, and I still have yet to play it. Thankfully, though, the Majora's Mask video on my channel is doing really well, so I guess it paid off in that regard. But still, I wanted to check it out. That said, I'll just speak to my wife's experience with it, as well as the general consensus surrounding it, because my wife had a chance to play it. She has a couple of builds with her mechs in those games. In that game, one she called a fat chocobo because it looks like a fat chocobo from Final Fantasy VII, and she also made one that looks like a Tachikoma from Ghost in the Shell. Yes, and they look cool. But anyways, her initial reactions to that game weren't that positive because she felt that it was too hard, and this is coming from somebody who thinks Sekiro is the best game that they ever put out, and Sekiro is notoriously one of the hardest games that's ever been released. That said, though, she has sort of gotten into the groove of it, and despite the fact that it doesn't seem to have that compelling of a story, which, let's be honest, from what I understand, Armored Core never really centered on that too much. What is there? The stuff that matters, the combat, the difficulty, the modding of your mechs, it's all peak Armored Core, and that seems to be the sentiment that universally people who are playing this game seem to be expressing. So I hope I can play it at some point. Unfortunately, it's not looking like I'll be able to. This week, I'm going to be playing a game called Papers, Please, in advance of a video that I want to do on that on my channel. So that way I can get that out of the way and then spend all my time with Starfield. So yeah, not going to have any time to play it. Probably the same for you, right, Syb? You haven't.
I think with mech games, and no, I haven't had a chance to, and I probably won't for a while. But the thing with mech games that I like and that I remember the most, so Mech Warrior Mercenaries, the series, play that huge. You can't play the newest one because it's just, for some reason, it hits my motion sickness in the worst way possible. Yeah, it's just so bad. I can't do it. I get violently ill after about 15 minutes. But the earlier versions, I love those. And you know what? The storyline in I believe it was the second one was really good. Was really good. That storyline was just gripping. I remember it to this day. You're a mercenary, and you're trying to make a ton of money.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the story. That's the whole point of being a mercenary, right?
Right. And so when I heard the criticism about the story for this game is not gripping, it's like, nah, dude's trying to buy a giant yacht and fill it with as much sandwich making professionals and as much white powdery substances used for construction as possible. Clearly, that's the prime motivation for a mercenary.
Well, most of them, yeah. Unless your name is Big Boss.
Yeah. So I think that the criticisms around that aspect of the game are undue. I I do, I feel sometimes like Butters when Morpheus comes up and he's like, "You're the chosen one," and I'm like, "Oh man, do I have to be the chosen one again? Can I just like, I don't know, fight for a yacht and some, professional sandwich making people?" Really just, yeah. So I find that argument a little silly, and I think that from what I'm seeing, the game looks great. The combat's great. I've been watching the multiplayer death matches and the other stuff, and there is definitely some builds that are really, really strong. It is, as I said when we first started talking about this game, it is a little too twitchy for me. I like it being a little slower, a little bit more methodical. I like having that limited ammo. There's nothing quite like rolling into combat with a hunchback with 20 rounds of AC-20 and that's it. And you got your mech fists and you got your AC-20 and maybe some small lasers, and you're going to hunt and stalk and fight, going in for the melee before falling back to your AC-20 to just core a couple mechs. It's like that kind of stuff is what I like the most about mech games. And again, they are different genres, there are different styles, and that's totally fine. I'm not saying that they did wrong. It's just there's just two different styles to mech combat. Some people like fast and crazy. I like the slow, methodical, giant death machines that are like 40 stories tall. Yeah. It's like, it's good. It's good stuff. No, the tiny little wasps, not too much, but I can see that this game is doing well, and I applaud that because I think we need more mech games. We need more mech style combat because whatever it is, if it's Hawken, Armored Core, or Mech Warrior, the series is underappreciated, and I think that we should really try and like have more fun with it and make it more special.
Yeah, I agree. It's a dying genre, sort of like the stealth genre. It's got to make it combat at some point. Yeah. I'll get around to playing it eventually, just because I love From Software so much. It's just too many things going on in the next couple months that are taking precedence. I'll get to it before Shadow of the Earth Tree for sure. All right, got a couple more stories that we got to get to. This is sad, but it's something that we kind of saw coming. So yeah, Bioware, go ahead.
Yeah, so Bioware just laid off about 50 people.
Yeah, 50 people.
They're still in heavy development for Dragon Age. And they're also still in heavy development, or in the early stages of heavy development, so we're told by EA, for making the next Mass Effect game. And they just let go of over 50 people at a studio that has been underfunded and understaffed for probably about, 6 years going on. What on earth are they thinking?
Yeah.
Again, I think there are some people. I know for a fact that if I were put in charge of the BioWare studio, the one in Edmonton, tomorrow, I probably would have fired like 20 people right as soon as I walked in the door. I'm like, you take a big severance. You're gone. Your uselessness to this company cannot be overstated. Get out. And that sounds cruel, but these are the people who were instrumental within the studio, cowing. Is that's not the term?
Kowtowing?
Kowtowing up to EA, kissing the ground that their executives walk on whenever they come out to the studio, which is like once a year. It's ridiculous. Just like praising their decisions, doing the microtransactions, trying to find, going to these meetings where they sit around with a bunch of other professionals, air quotes, who say, how can we separate money from the wallets of not just gamers, but specifically, could we target children to use their parents' credit cards to make as much money as we possibly can in the most dirty, filthy, disgusting ways possible. These people are a cancer to gaming, and I don't think that they should have jobs in this industry anymore. I will go on record saying that. I think microtransactions are especially the predatory ones that they've done are terrible. And these people go to big fancy conventions where they sit down and they brainstorm onto how to essentially abuse children. I hate it. I don't think it belongs. And I don't know if those were the people that were fired. They have made a statement that has said that that they needed to let go of some people to be more maneuverable. I think that's kind of a C-suite way of stating something. But if majority of those people were actually the microtransaction people, who, by the way, demand ridiculous payments as well. Like they make way more money than the devs working on art assets that are the primary thing that you end up seeing, or the people who do the gameplay loop. Like these people make those people's lives a nightmare. So again, if they fired all the microtransaction people, I'd be okay with that. But I don't think that's who they fired, because again, this is EA we're talking about. This is the EA that has slowly, methodically, and continually slowly cut away at Bioware, ripping them apart from what they were, telling them to reboot their games every few years, who don't understand the industry at all, and who gladly take advantage of everybody and anybody that they possibly can to make the most amount of profit that they can, without any long-term vision whatsoever. Like, we look at Baldur's Gate 3's success, and then we look at who made Baldur's Gate 2. Oh, this studio made the previous game in this entry. And if they had gotten off of their keisters at EA's C-suite, and they had realized that they could be doing this, just pumping this kind of game out, these kinds of games out continually, because it's not like Dragon Age 1 did poor financially. It was a massive success. And then they somehow managed to take that, turn it on a dime, go, we're just going to go action-y, and we're going to move away from the wide depth of play. We don't feel that having the ability to choose your starting character's race and gender and all that stuff, we don't feel that that's really necessary. Can we box that down to one guy that we could put on the screen? Now, obviously, yes, you could do male or female, but that's just the process. And they've even started to try and lean away from giving you the ability to play a particular class that you want as your main character, and more thinking about what if we just force them to have the one class? And that's what they really tried to lean into with the Inquisition. Again, they didn't do it completely, but you can feel that they're leaning that way. Over and over and over again, they're taking away choice. They're taking away the broad depth of experience, because they said, "Oh, market, whatever BS invented by this random guy who showed up at my day spa told me that's not a thing anymore, and that I should just really trust him. And he's got a cousin who's working on the newfangled computer game ideas, and I'm just going to go with what they say." It's like it sounds preposterous, but I swear that that's what is happening, and what has happened to this Edmonton studio for so long, that they just aren't getting what they need, who they need, and it leaves such a sour taste in the people's mouths who actually made that studio, who actually built it up from the ground up, who actually worked on the original games, and they're just beside themselves with just this angry state of going, we could have been doing this for years, for over a decade. Think of how many games they could have pushed out in the last decade if they weren't told to just, do this Anthem thing, make more microtransactions. If they had just stuck with Dragon Age and Mass Effect style like the traditional like concept. Yeah, the traditional concept of the games that they were working on. Now, I will say, and again, it's not all the studio's fault. It's not all EA's fault. There was a big push for a long time within a lot of the developers at the studio to try new things, to try different things, and to constantly push for doing something different constantly. And that obviously didn't work out for them because they kind of jumped at this whole like Anthem thing. They pushed for all of the big changes in a couple different aspects of both Dragon Age and Mass Effect. And there were some people who just, again, blindly trusted the leadership on the ending of Mass Effect 3, which clearly didn't work. It didn't work so much to the point where there was such a revolt that they actually said, okay, we're going to rebuild this. We're going to actually release a patch that actually erases all that traditional ending and gives us different endings, but while still sort of having those endings. It's like there was a little bit too many yes men there who were just nodding along with whatever idiot at the helm suggested and jumped in and played. And we heard that a lot. Again, it's not the only studio that suffers from that problem of, the head of the studio plays a new game that gets released by one of his competition, comes in the next day and says, we should be doing this. And they throw out 6 to 8 months worth of work on what they were currently working on. And again, it's stupid because at no point did the CRPG concept ever actually go away. We've been wanting games like this forever. And I hope that we get more of them. I really want to see a redone Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 in the style of Baldur's Gate 3. That would be absolutely amazing. And maybe we might get that at some point now that the studios realize, oh, this traditional thing that gaming was built on 20 years ago, 30 years ago, actually that's what people really like. So maybe we should start making more of that kind of stuff. So yeah, as far as the studio goes, I hope that nobody was fired who had a head on their shoulders, who knew what they were doing, who were trying to make the best product that they could. I really hope none of them got fired. I really doubt it. And unfortunately, that means that what are my hopes for the future of BioWare? And I will say that I don't think we're going to see another Mass Effect game from that studio. At this point, I really don't think so. I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. But I think that the Edmonton studio, as we know it, when their lease on the new building that they got into is up in, I think, 3 years. I think that's when the lease is up.
Yeah.
Or is up for renewal, I should say. I really heavily suspect that EA is just going to cancel them and just going to bury the studio. They're going to say something about absorbing it into something else and retooling, blah, 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 blah. Because again, this is what they've done every step of the way. Every studio that's not produced an absolute hit, they just cannibalize into a different studio, and then they eventually cannibalize that studio.
Yep.
EA murders studios for fun on a basically what is it, like every quarter they murder off a studio. If you line it up, it's like they kill off a studio. I know it's at least one a year. They acquire studios and then burn them. And at some point you got to ask yourself, is this actually part of their plan? Are they actually doubling down on this?
Well,
because this is insanity. And again, coming from the studio who gave us Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, the idiots,
Knights of the Old Republic,
Knights of the Old Republic,
Effects, yeah,
the idiots who decided that they needed to just change this stuff around. Again, it's not looking good. It really isn't looking good. And as much as I hope that it was just the multiplayer / microtransaction experts that got canned at the studio, the number's a little too high for that, and it leaves them at a sub 300 studio, which that's not good in today's day and age for trying to get a game out. That is really not good. Maybe Maybe it is, and I really do hope so. I have friends at the studio still, even to this day. I still have friends at the studio who I genuinely worry about, who genuinely have had a very stressful past 5 years, who the studio has lost touch with what it once was, and I don't know if they can get it back. We'll see with this new Dragon Age game, if we even get that at this point. Because just looking at things the way that it is, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, it's looking like they're pretty much on the way to becoming the next Activision Blizzard here. But hopefully something can happen where maybe things can be moved around so that they can achieve their former glory. But the way things are set up right now, I'm just thinking that Dragon Age Dreadnought is probably just going to head towards disaster, and not much hope for Mass Effect either. Oh well, at least we still have Respawn churning out awesome single-player games in the Star Wars series.
For now.
For now, yes. Emphasis on that. And then finally, I'm just going to go through this quickly because it's just another piece of like bleh news. They did Sony did the first PlayStation showcase in a number of years. Because there was the whole COVID thing that prevented them from being able to do stuff like that. They did that last May. Showed off a whole bunch of really cool stuff. Not a lot of people were hot in it. I really enjoyed the showcase. It showed off a lot of stuff that I didn't expect to be happening, but did. Like the Talos Principle 2, yes, please. The next game from the people who made Journey, absolutely. And then a couple of other things off the top of my head that I can't really recall. One thing that you and I were speculating might show up at that showcase was some new form of hardware from Sony. Maybe like the PS5 Pro, something that, who knows, might have some sort of 8K capability, some sort of enhancement that would make it worthwhile to get that particular version of the PS5. But they didn't announce that. They announced something called the PlayStation Project Q. And they didn't have a name for it yet, but they did let us know that the whole point of it was that it was sort of a remote play device that went along with your PS5. So if for whatever reason you don't know what remote play is, ladies and gentlemen, it's basically a device that allows you to play games from your console as a handheld and then take them to other parts of your house, provided that you have a Wi-Fi connection. So
a really good Wi-Fi connection.
Yes, exactly. I will say this, so it did work quite well with the I think the PSP had it. PS Vita definitely had it. But, you know, I've never really understood why. I don't know, maybe there is a mass market for people to get these remote play devices, but I don't really feel like shelling out a couple $100 just so I can take a PS5 game and play it in my bed. You know, I mean, sure, there'd be some people that might appreciate that. Maybe this particular household only has one TV that the console's hooked up to, and they want to bring the games into the other room so they can continue to play there. Okay, fine. But it's just never really appealed to me. Well, a bunch of new information came out for it this past week, and I'm still somewhat of that mindset. Plus, there's a couple of other things in regards to this portal. Well, it's no longer called Project Q. It's called PlayStation Portal. Get it? Portable. Yeah. So they released a whole bunch of information about it, and not impressed. Plus, a couple of things about it that are really kind of scummy. So I'll just get into some of the more blasé pieces of information. So on the surface, it costs $199 American, which on the surface doesn't sound like that bad a deal, right? Plus, it's got an 8-inch screen LCD. You know, I prefer OLED because like an OLED screen compared to an LCD screen, because OLED, you get deeper colors, better visual fidelity, but whatever. And I think the most impressive thing of all here is that it is able to maintain 1080p 60 FPS, which is impressive when you consider like other handheld consoles like the Nintendo Switch and the Steam Deck, which The Steam Deck can go up to 60 frames per second depending on the game, but it can't go up to 1080p resolution. Whereas, at least what they're telling us here, the PlayStation Portal can. That said, this is really, there's this one thing about it that's really anti-consumer here, Simon. I don't know if you know this, but, if you want to take this device into the other room, you might want to, plug in a pair of headphones, right? I mean, that's how I play all my games. It does have a wired audio jack, which is good, but, it's 2023. A lot of people try to use wireless headsets whenever they can, right? Get this. This device doesn't support Bluetooth. I'll repeat that. It does not support Bluetooth. Instead, you have to buy Sony's proprietary technology in order to be able to use wireless headphones. And get this, Sybe. The two compatible pieces of technology, the two compatible audio devices that go with the PlayStation Portal are called the Pulse Elite Wireless Headset and the Pulse Explorer Wireless Earbuds. The headset costs $150, and the earbuds cost $200. So you are paying the exact same amount for the audio devices as you're paying for the Portal itself. So that's $400 American for this. Just remote play. No, it's not like the PS Vita. It's not like PlayStation Portable, where you have games dedicated to that console. You don't get cloud streaming. It's just remote play, and you pay $400 for it.
Now, I have another question here.
Yeah.
And this is an important one. Are these, by any way possibly, are these bone induction, or are they standard noise cancellation headsets?
No, they're. I think whatever the first one you said was.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if they're bone conduction, that is one thumbs up in one category, in the sense that's good. I think it's important. I think with some of the tragedy that we've seen recently, I think noise canceling headphones are actually they're kind of bad. I don't think that they're a good idea for any consumer to go with. I know that some people really love that, complete isolation stuff, but being able to hear sirens and other things is that's pretty important. However, in the losing category of that, what are they thinking? I can currently get a wireless, bone conducting, beautiful headset that has worked. I've used this personal brand multiple times. I can currently get that for $80 Canadian, under $80 Canadian right now. How are they charging $150 and $300 for this stuff? Sorry, $250, whatever it was. This is really ridiculous.
It's really stupid. The only thing that I can think of is it's sort of like, how Blizzard caters to the whales with the way that they set up a game like Diablo Immortal, right? It's because there's they can cater to this niche segment of gamers that will buy this and spend that amount of money on it because they're rich.
Yeah.
Right? So why not? It's the same thing with the VR stuff, right? So I don't get the logic behind it. That's the only possible explanation I can think of. But why would they do that instead of trying to provide a worthwhile competitor to something like the Nintendo Switch, which should be pretty easy considering, the state that the Switch is in right now. The Steam Deck is slightly better, at least in terms of its technology. It's definitely way better in terms of its ability to play games beyond just what the Nintendo Switch offers. Yeah. But Sony, who the hell doesn't want to play Horizon Forbidden West on the go? I certainly would. Give me that capacity. I would love that. But yeah, makes no sense to me, man. Right.
Yeah, no, and I think, yeah, I don't think PlayStation is moving towards finding the best solution for being the everyman gamer tech. I think that we're seeing more and more this temptation, and it all happened when they got bought out and became an American company, moved to California. They look at Apple and they salivate, going, yes, if only we were Apple, that top brand that everybody gets, and they drop $2,000 on every couple of years. It's like, or every year, in some cases. I think that's what they're going for, and I think that's not a good thing. I think that is a very, very bad idea.
Yeah. So, well, thankfully, this is really only going to be like I said, it's only going to be something that's taken up, if at all, by that small niche of people, and the majority of us are just going to go back to playing whatever on PS5. Anyways, guys, moving on from that little piece of stupid information, let's conclude this by just reminding you that, hey, Starfield is coming out next week. You can bet your ass that next time that Syb and I talk, he's going to be giving his general impressions of the game. I unfortunately won't be able to until the podcast after that, but it's something that we're very, very excited for. It's the beginning of a couple months stretch of really, really excellent games sort of coming out. Lies of P, Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, just to name a few. So make sure you stay tuned to Triple S League to hear all of our thoughts on all those games, because I'm going to be playing all of them. I don't know how, but I'm going to be playing all of them. So, yeah, make sure to leave a like on this video, because when you do that, it tells the YouTube algorithm that not only this video, but all the other videos on the Triple S League channel are worth watching. Leave a comment if you have any thoughts on any or all the things that Syb and I talked about for this particular episode. Whether you agree or disagree, we'd love to hear from you, provided that you just keep it civil. And I want to thank Syb, as always, for providing his lovely insight and commentary. Syb, did you have anything else you wanted to plug before we conclude?
No, I think that's about it. If you are excited about Starfield content, we're gonna be going down pretty hard on this in the coming weeks. And of course, if you love Futurama, old school original Futurama, Ash is doing an amazing series covering every single episode over on the Scenometry channel, and he's been loving that, and the reaction has been absolutely huge, and we appreciate that so much. Would love to have you in the Discord as well. Please join the Discord if you like community events and whatnot.
Yes, and links to Scenometry and, you're already here, so I don't have to put a link to the Triple S League channel, but links to Scenometry and my personal channel will be in the description box below in case you want to check those out. All right, I'm out. Peace. Stay yellow.
Goodbye.